The small town of Ravens Creek had always been quiet, the kind of place where everyone knew each other's names and nothing ever happened. But that all changed the summer of 1987, when boys started disappearing. It began with Tommy Miller, a 12-year-old with a knack for baseball and a smile that could light up a room. He was last seen riding his bike near the edge of the woods, heading home after practice. When he didn't show up for dinner, his parents called the sheriff. Search parties combed the area, but there was no trace of Tommy, just his bike lying on its side near the tree line. A week later, it happened again. This time, it was Jake Collins, a shy kid who loved comic books and spent most afternoons at the library. He vanished on his way home, and the only clue left behind was his backpack, torn and discarded in the bushes. The town was on edge. Parents kept their children indoors and the streets emptied by sunset. But the disappearances didn't stop. One by one, boys between the ages of 10 and 14 were taken, each vanishing without a trace. The only connection was the woods, the dense, sprawling forest that bordered the town. Rumors began to spread. Some said it was a wild animal, others blamed a drifter passing through. But deep down, everyone knew it was something worse, something human. The sheriff, a grizzled man named Hank Grayson, had seen his share of trouble, but nothing like this. He spent sleepless nights poring over maps of the woods, trying to piece together where the boys might have been taken. One night, he got a break. A call from a hunter who claimed to have seen a figure dragging something heavy into the trees. Hank assembled a team and headed into the woods, armed with flashlights and shotguns. The deeper they went, the more the forest seemed to close in around them. The air grew colder, and the sounds of the night, crickets, owls, the rustle of leaves, faded into an eerie silence. Then they found it. A cabin hidden deep in the woods, its windows boarded up and its door hanging slightly ajar. The air smelled of decay, and the ground around the cabin was littered with bones. Animal bones at first glance. But as they got closer, they realized some were too small, too human. Hank motioned for his men to spread out. They approached the cabin slowly, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Inside, they found a nightmare. The walls were covered in strange symbols, drawn in what looked like dried blood. Tables were cluttered with tools, knives, saws, syringes, and jars filled with unidentifiable substances. In the corner, a makeshift operating table was stained with dark, crusted blood. But the worst was in the basement. The stairs creaked as they descended, the air growing colder with each step. At the bottom, they found cages, small, rusted cages, just big enough to hold a child. Some were empty, but others contained the remains of the missing boys, their bodies twisted and mutilated in ways that defied explanation. In the center of the room stood a man, his back to them. He was tall and thin, his hair greasy and unkempt. He didn't seem to notice them at first, too focused on the boy strapped to the table in front of him. A boy who was still alive, his eyes wide with terror. Hank shouted for the man to freeze, but the man turned slowly, a smile spreading across his face. In his hand, he held a scalpel, its blade glinting in the dim light. "You're too late," the man said, his voice calm, almost soothing. "They're already part of something greater." Hank didn't hesitate. He fired, the shot echoing through the basement. The man crumpled to the floor, his smile still etched on his face. The boy on the table, barely conscious, was rushed to the hospital. He survived, but he never spoke of what happened to him. The police searched the cabin thoroughly, uncovering journals filled with the man's deranged writings. His name was Victor Hargrove, a former scientist who had been dismissed from his job years ago for unethical experiments. He had been living in the woods, conducting his twisted research in secret. The town of Ravens Creek held a memorial for the boys who were lost, The woods were declared off limits, and the cabin was burned to the ground. But even as the town tried to move on, a sense of unease lingered. Years later, a group of teenagers dared each other to explore the woods. They had heard the stories, of course, but they didn't believe them. They laughed as they ventured deeper, joking about ghosts and monsters. But their laughter died when they found the clearing. The ground was scorched where the cabin had once stood, but something new had taken its place. A crude altar, made of stones and bones. At its center was a symbol, carved into the earth, identical to the ones found in Victor's journals. One of the teens, a boy named Ethan, felt a chill run down his spine. He turned to leave, but something caught his eye. A figure standing at the edge of the clearing. It was too far away to make out clearly, but Ethan could have sworn it was smiling. The group ran, not stopping until they were out of the woods. They never spoke of what they saw, but Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that they had awakened something that had been waiting in the shadows. The town of Ravens Creek remains quiet, but the woods are still avoided. Some say the spirits of the boys still wander there, lost and searching for a way home. Others believe Victor's experiments left a mark on the land, a darkness that can never be erased. And on the darkest nights when the wind blows just right, you might hear a whisper, a voice calling from the trees. It's faint, almost too quiet to hear, but it's there. Come closer, it says. I'm still here.